and welcome again to another episode of Dave Trippin'. It's a beautiful winter day, sunny, so what do? I go for a walk. I answer questions from my email. And I got a cool question, I just thought, for all the different ways that you could approach it recently, where Victor writes, he asks, there was like kind of twofold question here. There was talking about martial arts he was interested in. So are there martial arts studios kind of like in the surrounding area in the countryside, and what's that like in the cities? Are they readily available? What are you gonna find? So I'll answer that one first before I go into the difference between schools that you find in the countryside versus schools that you find in the cities, and specifically the structures of those schools. And then I'll talk a little bit about the the personality of the students and the whole kind of like, call it energy and social dynamic. So the idea of like those martial arts studios and stuff like that, I think it's a sort of question of search and ye shall find, because it's not a particular interest I've had, so I don't see them. But I bet as soon as you were interested and you knew the kanji for this, martial arts are a serious interest in Japan, and usually within the clubs at the schools, you're going to see judo and you're going to see kendo, and maybe at larger schools you have like the bow staff. Anything do means way. So you're gonna find like all these different ways of martial arts, and they're even in there, like as I say, integrated into the school system. So if you come here, it's such a big part of the culture, whether you're in the countryside or not, or if you're in the larger city. I don't think you're gonna have a real problem finding them. So they're prevalent. And I think it's really cool too, because yeah, there's a sort of, you could almost call it meditative if you're doing something like karate or taekwondo, but judo or jujitsu is an actual practical martial art. It's something that there's no question about it. If you're in MMA, you could still use judo. And I always thought that that was really interesting. It's something that my family's into as well. Both my brothers train in judo. And it's something that you can actually use to defend yourself. Not that, hoping you never would. And it should appeal to that part of you, the peaceful warrior, controlling yourself, controlling your mind, disciplining your body, but that it's not something that actually in practical use is an art form only, So I always thought that that was really cool, that something that they so appreciate is of practical use in defending yourself. And really cool for them, because judo is all about, using your opponent's weight against them, and leverage, in that, it doesn't matter what size you are, you could win if you understood, the principles of this art. So anyways, that's my little rant for like the martial arts and stuff like that. Now, to move on to the schools that you find in the countryside versus the schools that you find in the city. Really interesting question. What are they like? What's the energy like? What are the kids like? How is it different? And Victor asked, is it just commercial, or is it just through cinema that we see the schools in the cities are more, commercial, maybe better maintained, things like this? And I can come at it from a couple of different angles, basically. So, I'm no scientist, but what you can infer is that where there is a larger concentration of population, you're going to have a greater investment of money for two reasons. One, you have the greater population, and two, in a democratic society, you'll focus funding where you can get the most votes. So yes, practically speaking, in the cities, you're going to find schwankier schools that are better maintained out in the countryside. And I can speak from experience. I've gone to larger city centers, and when I go there, yes, the schools are better maintained compared to the countryside. You'll also find in the larger city centers, no brainer there, that usually class sizes can be much larger as well. You also find that sort of thing, I think, that's shared universally, this is around the world, that you'll get a change in your students depending on what kind of, countryside or city, where the students in cities are a little more jaded, have seen a little bit more, it takes a little bit more to impress them, where the people in the countryside are more salt of the earth, maybe just naturally a little more open, a little friendlier. But you could never set a rule for this because, we're all individuals, blah, blah, blah. But generally speaking, I think you'd find this to be true. What was the other detail? I had a really cool detail about the differences between them. Okay, it finally came to me. I remember what I was going to say. So basically, one thing that I have noticed that slipped my mind, there's going to be like this huge jump forward in the walk. I've noticed that one thing that Japan does really well, now I say that the city has better maintenance of their buildings and stuff, but generally speaking, one thing the Japanese get right, regardless of all these other influences like political influences, concentration of, the populace, how many people are living there, is that they really do infrastructure well. Like, I was amazed, not that there isn't good infrastructure in Canada, it is actually pretty good. There's not this large population, they're a little more socialist, government is a little larger, blah, 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 they have good maintenance. When you go down any side street in Japan, any side street, it doesn't matter if you are like Cho Inaka, like very, very countryside, they are super maintained, where you can be like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and this street has been recently renewed. And that's true of their schools as well. If they are lacking in maintenance compared to the city centers, they're almost always being updated. In fact, most of the schools that I subbed at, that weren't the schools that I was at regularly, which were at a base level good maintenance, so they didn't require it. If a school needs maintenance, a school gets maintained in Japan. So naturally, like you would see anywhere in the world, there is this slight difference. But generally speaking, infrastructure they do really, really well here, and they don't let run to ruin. So you can definitely notice that. Look at that. That's those are beautiful. Got this slight wind right now. Feeling all philosophical. Yeah, so those are some thoughts on the martial arts and the different, things that you'll see in the schools. So if you enjoy videos like this, please do like, subscribe, and share. That would be natural. If you have any questions, like Victor did, about anything really, this is a small question, but I like to talk. I like to go for walks, so get a hold of me and ask a question. That's cool. And I will, and that information is all down below. And I will get a hold of you guys in the next video. Ciao for now. Peace.